Alexandra Kemp was born on October 11, 1982, in the city of Leawood, Kansas. With a population of just over 30,000 people, it was among the wealthiest suburbs in the Kansas City metropolitan area. Alexandra, who preferred to be called Allie, lived there with her parents and two brothers. From a very young age, she was extremely active, taking part in 19 different sports teams as well as various other activities throughout her school years. She had a strong passion for soccer and also excelled in her studies. After graduating from high school in 2001, Allie enrolled at Kansas State University to major in ecology. She had always desired a career that would enable her to help others. Allie even planned to travel to Russia through an exchange program to assist orphaned children. In 2002, after completing her freshman year at college, 19-year-old Allie returned home for the summer break. She wanted to find a part-time job and also spend time with her loved ones before going back. She was also excited to reunite with her longtime boyfriend, Phil. The two had been together for 5 years, but they had chosen different universities after finishing high school. Despite the distance, they maintained their relationship, and summer vacations were their only chance to be together. Allie and Phil got a job together at the local public pool, and Allie's younger brother joined them as well. Their work shifts followed one another. Phil worked in the mornings, Allie during the day, and her brother in the evenings. On Thursday, June 18th, Allie arrived for her shift to take over from Phil. At first, she considered asking him to stay with her for a while, but then she changed her mind since they already had plans to meet later that evening for a date. The day was mostly overcast, so there weren't many visitors at the pool. Allie sat at her desk, reading a book, waiting for her shift to end. As evening approached, her younger brother came to the pool to start his shift. However, to his surprise, he couldn't find his sister anywhere. Her phone, keys, and other personal belongings were left unattended on the table. Yet Allie herself was nowhere to be found. After searching the area, he decided to call their parents. Their father, Roger Kemp, arrived immediately, becoming increasingly worried as the situation seemed strange. He knew that Allie would never just leave her belongings, including her phone, and leave work early. Roger carefully searched the entire area, checking every corner. Finally, he reached the pump room. It was very dark inside, and at first, he didn't notice anything unusual. But as he was about to leave, something caught his attention. A blue tarp was spread out in the corner, and a foot was sticking out from underneath it. His heart dropped as he moved closer, realizing it was his daughter lying beneath it. Allie was covered in blood and bruises, showing no signs of life. She was also missing her shorts and underwear. Roger immediately called an ambulance, but the doctors couldn't save her. She passed away shortly after arriving at the hospital. Medical experts determined that Allie had sustained a severe head injury, and the cause of death was strangulation. They also found numerous defensive wounds, indicating that Allie had tried to resist her attacker. Police began an investigation and quickly found the first piece of evidence. There was an open first aid kit with a pill container on the floor of the pump room, near where the victim was found. It was sent to the lab, and experts discovered male DNA on the container and its lid. Biological samples were also found on Allie's clothing. After comparing all these samples, experts concluded that they belonged to the same man, but he was not in the FBI database. Police started searching for possible suspects, beginning with Allie's boyfriend. Considering the brutality of the attack, investigators thought the assailant might have had personal motives. According to Phil, after his shift, he went to visit friends, and his alibi was confirmed by several people. He also gave his DNA sample, which didn't match the perpetrator's. The same applied to Allie's father and brother. They both provided their samples immediately. Roger was devastated with grief and spent the entire night at the morgue, unable to leave Allie alone. The next day, as city residents gathered to express their condolences, he gave a speech and vowed to find his daughter's killer at any cost. News of the murder spread quickly among the locals, who had rarely encountered such crimes before. As a result, the police received numerous tips, and almost immediately, they found their first lead. Several pool visitors reported seeing a strange man hanging around the pool area the day before the murder, watching them from behind bushes and even recording them. Other witnesses mentioned seeing a man with a similar appearance driving a beige Ford pickup truck in the pool parking lot. None of them recognized the man, and it seemed unlikely that he was a visitor. Phil added another interesting detail. One day, Allie had told him that she sometimes felt uneasy working alone, as if someone was watching her. She didn't mention seeing anyone suspicious near the pool, but the witnesses' accounts suggested it could have been the same man. Another clue came from Allie's friend, Laurel. On the day of the murder, around 3 p.m., Allie called her, saying she was bored. Laurel decided to drive to the pool to keep her company. When she arrived, she honked several times, expecting Allie to come out and meet her. But instead, a man came out of the pump room and waved at Laurel. Thinking it was Allie's boss, she assumed her visit might get her friend in trouble and decided to leave. After hearing this account, detectives believed that this man was likely the killer. Based on Laurel's statement, they made a composite sketch of the suspect, which was then distributed to local newspapers and TV channels. They also launched a flyer distribution campaign featuring the composite sketch and a description of the suspect. With help from Roger's friends and many volunteers, thousands of flyers were distributed throughout the town. Despite these efforts, the police still couldn't get closer to the perpetrator. Roger also raised $50,000 as a reward for information leading to the killer, but it didn't bring results. Sometime later, he suddenly had the idea to put up a billboard showing the suspect's composite sketch along a busy highway he drove on his way to work. He discussed this idea with the police, who supported it. However, they told him that the department didn't have the funds to rent a billboard, and he would have to pay for it himself. Roger contacted a billboard company to ask about the cost. When they heard about his daughter's murder, they decided to provide the billboard completely free of charge, wanting to help solve the case. Allie's father, who hadn't expected such kindness, gratefully accepted their offer. Together with the police, they created a banner featuring the composite sketch, an image of the suspect's car, and details about the $50,000 reward. After the billboard went up, the police began receiving far more tips, exceeding 1,000 within just a few weeks. They carefully checked each one and soon found an interesting lead. Someone said the composite sketch resembled a local man named James Strader. Detectives went to talk to him, but Strader claimed he was at work during the time of the murder. His employer confirmed his alibi, and he was temporarily ruled out as a suspect. However, soon after, the police got another tip about Strader and discovered that he owned the same type of vehicle as the suspect. But there was more. Police found out that he was wanted in 2 states for a series of crimes. In just 3 weeks, he had allegedly committed 3 sexual assaults and 2 kidnappings. He assaulted his ex-girlfriend, then forced her to drive with him to find another victim. Soon, he stopped and tried to break into someone's home to steal money. At that moment, a 14-year-old girl was passing by, and Strader forced her into his car by threatening her. He then drove to a secluded area, assaulted the girl and his ex-girlfriend, left them both there, and drove away. Later, he knocked on another woman's door, saying his car had broken down. When she opened the door, Strader pulled out a knife, entered the house, and assaulted her. He then abducted the woman and drove her to another town, but she managed to escape. Eventually, he was arrested in Utah. Strader had pulled into a gas station and left without paying, prompting the staff to call the police. Shortly after, an officer spotted his car, pulled him over, checked his ID, and discovered that he was wanted for kidnappings and assaults. While talking to the officer, Strader smirked and told him to go ahead and handcuff him. Investigators in Allie's case immediately contacted their colleagues in another state, requesting a DNA sample from Strader. However, once the lab finished the analysis, detectives encountered an unexpected outcome. His DNA didn't match the sample found on Allie's clothing or the pill container. Strader was eventually sentenced to life imprisonment for his other crimes, and detectives continued searching for Allie's killer. For many months, they made no progress. But in the fall of 2004, detectives received another promising lead. Someone called the police, saying the composite sketch resembled his acquaintance, a man named Teddy Hoover. Upon investigating him, police learned that he lived in Kansas City and worked for a pool maintenance company. They also found his name in the case files. Hoover had been one of the people gathered at the pool when the body was found. He had been questioned along with others but hadn't raised any suspicion. Investigators went to his house and asked him questions about Allie's murder. Hoover claimed he barely remembered where he was that day since it had been 2 years. The officers requested his DNA sample, but Teddy refused, saying he needed to talk to his lawyer first. Police didn't rule him out as a suspect but had no evidence linking him to the crime. Later, they decided to question him again. But there was a problem. Teddy and his girlfriend had disappeared, and their whereabouts were unknown. A month later, police received another tip. Someone who wanted to remain anonymous informed them that Teddy and his girlfriend were now living in Connecticut, over 1,000 miles away from Kansas City. This seemed very suspicious. Teddy had moved across the country right after the police became interested in him. Detectives contacted the state's postal service to track Teddy's new address, but they couldn't locate him. So, they did the same for his girlfriend's name, and this time, they succeeded. The woman was receiving mail at an address in the small town of Bantam. However, there was something unusual. A man named Benjamin Appleby was also receiving mail at the same address. Investigators looked into this name and discovered that he had a long criminal record, including robberies and assaults. Interestingly, Teddy Hoover also had convictions for similar crimes, including an active arrest warrant for public indecency. Detectives began to suspect something was wrong. According to the mail carrier who regularly delivered letters to Teddy's girlfriend's house, he only saw 2 people living there. And based on his descriptions, Appleby looked exactly like Hoover. Police again contacted their colleagues in Connecticut for help. They went to the house and confirmed that Teddy Hoover was indeed living there, which led to his arrest on the public indecency warrant. Meanwhile, detectives from Allie's case arrived in Connecticut and began preparing for the interrogation. They set up an investigation board with photos of the victim, Teddy, and pictures from the crime scene, hoping it would help elicit a confession. When he was brought into the room, he immediately became nervous upon seeing it all. Almost at once, he admitted that his real name was Benjamin Appleby and that Teddy Hoover was the identity of his late friend, which he had used to avoid arrest. At first, he denied any involvement in Allie's murder, but that didn't last long. Just 10 minutes into the questioning, he began to talk. According to Benjamin, on that day, he went to the pool to speak with the manager and offer his company's cleaning services. That's when he saw Allie, and he instantly liked her. She was in the pump room, and Benjamin approached her, trying to start a conversation. She responded politely to his compliments, but clearly wasn't interested. Benjamin kept complimenting her, but she wasn't receptive and tried to leave. He blocked the door with his hand and tried to touch her. When Allie pushed him away, he started beating her. He hit her several times, removed her clothes intending to assault her, but then heard a honking sound outside. So he strangled her, covered her with a tarp, and went outside, where he saw her friend Laurel sitting in her car. He waved at her, and she drove away. After that, he left the crime scene as well. Later, Benjamin decided to return and arrived just as medics were taking Allie out of the pump room. That was when the police questioned him, but he didn't arouse suspicion. Benjamin said he didn't know why he committed the crime and regretted it. He also said that he really liked Allie, and when she pushed him away, he simply lost control of himself. After obtaining his confession, investigators sent his DNA sample to the lab. It matched the samples found on Allie's clothes and the pill container. When asked why he had taken those pills, Benjamin said he had been trying to find something in the first aid kit to use as a lubricant. The day after his arrest, he hired a lawyer who tried to retract his confession, even though just a few hours earlier, Benjamin had said he didn't want to put the victim's family through a trial. However, with his DNA found on the victim's clothing, there was virtually no way to escape punishment. During the trial, his lawyer argued that the murder was accidental, but he couldn't prove such an implausible claim. In 2005, Benjamin was found guilty and sentenced to a minimum of 50 years in prison. This meant he wouldn't be eligible for release until 2054, and even then, it wasn't guaranteed. Since he was only 29 at the time of sentencing, he would likely remain behind bars for the rest of his life. Since then, Benjamin has repeatedly tried to appeal his sentence, but every attempt has failed. Each attempt, however, has been a heavy burden on Allie's family. Her father has done everything possible to make sure his daughter's killer will never be released. Allie's parents also organized self-defense classes for women in her memory. The project received widespread recognition, and tens of thousands of women have been trained through it. Allie's father was even invited to the White House to meet Barack Obama. The president honored him for creating the self-defense program and emphasized its importance. Roger was also thanked for coming up with the idea of displaying information about wanted criminals on billboards. It turned out that no one had ever done this before, and the method proved to be extremely effective. If you found this case intriguing, make sure to like and subscribe. We upload new crime case videos every night. Stay tuned, and brace yourself for what's coming next.